entrepreneurs are just solving a problem, right? That really is, I mean, that's business in general, but a successful entrepreneur notices a gap in the market.
Welcome to the Sidehustle Lounge. If you're looking for flexible ways to earn income, grow your mindset, and live the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, you're in the right place. So lower the lights, grab your favorite beverage, and join your host, founder of NotaryCoach.com and Amazon best-selling author of Sign and Thrive, How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent, Bill Soroka.
Cheers to my guest today, Allan Groleau, the author of Wedding Zero to Ceremony Hero, Amazon best-selling book already. Also founder of the Unboring Wedding Academy. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
So good to be here, Bill. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I always enjoy when we get to hang out a little bit. You deliver so much value. So for those of you who are listening today, by the end of this podcast, we're going to be talking about 3 specific funnels that will help you become a booked solid wedding officiant. Mark is the absolute pro at this. And Mark, you're still a very high in demand wedding officiant today, right?
Yes. Yeah. I officiate weddings all summer long, but living up in Canada, it's not that popular to get married outside on a golf course in November. so where I might have colleagues in California who can do weddings 12 months of the year, I definitely have off seasons, and that has certainly helped me build the other side of my business, which is the course, the coaching, the helping of other officiants. So I get to kind of straddle 2 worlds where I marry couples and serve them. And on the other side, I have all these clients, officiants, celebrants all over the world who I help. And that's the side we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I love that. And what a gift. You almost have this forced time period because of your limited season where you can work on your, what probably started out as a side hustle, as the coaching and course side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of Canadian officiants can't do this year round, can't do it full time. Once I started down the rabbit hole of doing weddings, loving the weddings, I fell into it because people started asking me, how do you do what you do? What's your process? How do you charge what you charge? Why are you so high in demand? And so, I started to have a side hustle to my side hustle of telling people, oh, this is how I do it. This is my process. And then just had an epiphany moment. Like, I wonder if I could make a business out of helping people do unboring weddings. And so here we are.
Yeah, the rest is history. Let's go back.
It wasn't that easy.
Right, exactly. As my friend Laura says, she was an overnight success, and it just took her 17 years to get there.
Yes, lots of long, dark nights of the overnight success.
Yeah, nobody sees that part too, but that's where the magic happens.
Yep,
I'd like to go back a little bit further too, because I'm just trying to picture you, little Allan Groleau in 3rd grade, raising your hand when the teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Did you say, "I want to be a wedding officiant," or how did this?
I was usually out in the hall because the teacher tossed me from class so often. Literally, it's funny you mentioned 3rd grade. My 1st grade teacher and my mom became really great friends and are still friends to this day because my teacher had to call home so often because of my behavior. So anyway, a little bit of school background on me. Now I get to stand up in front of people and perform. And, that'll give you a hint of, no, of course, nobody chooses or knows that being a wedding officiant can be a job and make you a living and be something that you love doing. That said, if you enjoy standing in front of people and making, people laugh and just making people feel really great, and you have some sort of public presence like I seem to have back in grade 1, which got me in a lot of trouble, you might be right for this role.
I think you have just inspired so much hope in our audience. fantastic. So, well, tell me how did it come about?
Well, it's funny because oh man, how long do you make this story? I thought I was going to be a teacher. Like I really wanted to teach school. Like when you're a teacher and you're in your teens and you think you got to go to university, if you love teaching, which I clearly love doing, you don't think, well, I'm going to teach a specific skill. You think I'm going to be a teacher. So I was going to be a teacher. Few things happened. Then I decided to, I got an English Lit degree and thought I was going to pursue, becoming an English teacher or whatever. But, a hard turn in my life, I decided I wanted to pursue philosophy and theology. So I went to seminary. And just loved learning. I learned Greek. I learned Hebrew. I loved hitting the books, and I loved presenting and teaching with my master's degree. Then you get out of seminary and you say, okay, I guess I'm going to go into ministry, become a clergy person. And so I actually did that for a few years and did not love it. So I realized I'd spent 30 grand on a master's towards what it spits you out to do is not something that I love to do, because through a lot of soul searching and introspection, I learned I am an entrepreneur. And so that's why I love having landed on your podcast today. A pastor coach told me, Mark, when you're in seminary and that, you keep hearing the word leader. You're in leadership, and the church world is all about leadership. But a leader is not necessarily an entrepreneur. And I realized it was a poor fit. I didn't know why it was a poor fit, but it's because I like to build something. I loved building and getting a new idea, building it. And church work is so much not that. It's a lot of hand-holding and arbitrating and moderating and, guiding a congregation and a group through challenges. And that just wasn't me. So I quit that about being a minister. And then I really kind of desperately had to think, what is my only marketable skill? Now that I have 2 degrees, I'm in my late 20s. I have a daughter and another little one on the way. What do I do now? And I was listening to business podcasts, the Fizzle Show, Pat Flynn, people like that. And one day the penny dropped. Do you have something you are good at and you really enjoy doing that you can teach and that somebody will pay you money to learn? And so I was doing weddings, didn't like them as a minister because they're boring. Most people don't like weddings. I didn't like foisting them on people. But when I started to learn about, oh my gosh, I can tweak weddings, I can tell the couple's story. You get 150 people sitting there who absolutely love this couple, and you tell their story and make it about them, and you're all laughing and you're all crying. It is an electric, incredible experience that I can't wait to get to, and that my couples can't wait to get to. And then as word of mouth spreads about you as an officiant, people can't wait for you to be the officiant. They can't wait to go to a wedding you're officiating because you put on such a great experience for everybody. Once that started to build, and I was starting to build that side of the business, that's when I started to become really high in demand. People started asking me, how do you do what you do? And that's where I started to realize, I can jump this entrepreneur side of me. I can jump to another lily pad where I can both serve couples and then serve this other audience who wants to learn how to create the unboring weddings. That's how I kind of came up with the name of my own business. I didn't start out that way. I was just officiating as a minister, but people want the stereotype wedding is so boring. People just have to get through it. And so, my marketing says it all. I hope, and I think if you want a really incredible ceremony, I'm your guy. And if you want to learn how to do it, I'm your guy. So it's been super fun entrepreneuring. I just absolutely love it. It took me, a few decades and a couple of degrees and a couple of career turns to find it. But that is the long origin story answer to your question to how did I get from sitting in a hall in grade 3 to where I am today.
What a great story. And I love that you shared that, because I think when you hit a certain level of success, people just think you have it figured out the entire way. But it's clearly not the way. So I honor you for the courage it took to step away and shift perspective. But what I'm also super grateful for, and I can't wait to attend an unboring wedding at some point, because weddings are so boring to me.
Yeah.
I've stopped accepting offers to attend because I can't do it anymore. But what you describe and what I've seen you teach, and I've seen and heard from your students, it just sounds like a party, like something that you want to be a part of. And I love that you've shifted that perspective.
Yeah, and I'm just so glad you said that on two fronts. I mean, first of all, the origin story. I mean, we don't have to go as far back as grade 3 or grade 1 for me to say, of course, I never thought about being a wedding officiant. I mean, I'm talking like 10 years ago, when I started officiating. I was like, this is the pits. Like everybody's uptight. Everybody's nervous. It's another thing I have to do. People can't wait for the ceremony to be over. I'm boring myself. So if you had told me 10 years ago, Mark, do you know that your thing is going to be doing wedding ceremonies? I would have thought it was a life sentence of some sort. So discovering that it can be story-based, all about the couple, and just send everybody into peals of laughter, and you're just stirring up all the love and the positive regard in the room. It's so fun. I'm surprised that I'm here. And I also love that you said that you turned down wedding invitations, because I'm working on book 2 right now, which is my Unboring Wedding Formula. And that is my introduction. We'll see if the editors see fit to keep it in. You know how editors, you've written a book, you know how it is. Yeah. But my intro is like, imagine yourself getting a wedding invitation in the mail. What's your first thought? Maybe when you get past, okay, this is money out the window because I've got to buy a gift on the bridal registry or whatever. Your second thought is usually like, wedding ceremony. Got to sit through a ceremony. I am it started as a one-man mission, but now I've got hundreds and hundreds of Unboring Wedding members inside my course all over the world helping me out here. I would love to see a day, and I think it can come. I don't think it's pie in the sky, where you get a wedding invitation, and now the new standard is you're going to have a great time at the ceremony. You don't have to sit and endure the day until the wedding reception. I'm seeing living proof of that every single weekend with reports that I get back from not just my couples, but people who take the course. And I think weddings can turn into something amazing. There's definitely a revolution happening.
I love that. What you're describing is having a higher vision that pulls you forward, no matter what you're doing. And that's a huge bite to take, but I love that you're taking it. The other thing that you mentioned, and I'd like to just explore a little bit because I can relate. In my own business, when I first started out as a side hustle and mobile notary, I dreaded my work because I don't know if I was in it all the way. Number one, I didn't respect it. It was a side hustle. I was trying to do a bunch of other things at the same time. It wasn't until I systemized my approach that freed my mind enough to focus more on my customer, where it was almost like I had a script for every signing, every appointment kind of flowed a certain way. And that just changed. That was a game changer. Did you experience anything similar to that helped bring the joy to your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's the same thing for me. It did start as a side hustle when I was, quote, a minister. So I didn't feel like I needed a flow. Then when I realized, oh gosh, I want to do this for quote unquote clients, I need a workflow where, the intake, the booking, the signing, the payments, I had to get a system in place. So that's kind of the logistical nitty gritty. I needed to get a flow and a system in place for that, the professional side. But in terms of, again, whenever we talk about weddings, there's different spheres. There's like the professional side, and then there's the actual performance and ceremony delivery side. I cast about for a little while, knowing I knew how to do a fun ceremony. But within about a year and a half, 2 years, I realized I can turn this into a formula, the ceremony side, where I basically write a structured story that sounds similar, has the same beginning, ending. I engage the guests in the same way. You basically don't want to reinvent the wheel for every single wedding. And the great news is you don't need to. I started to get couples that would get married, for example, by me, and then 2 months later, they would be guests at another wedding that I'm doing, and I would see them again. Oh my gosh, how are you? And they couldn't wait to sit in the seats and observe the experience they'd experienced 2 months before, and then I would see them 8 months later at another wedding, because this is going to happen as people refer you in the seats. That's one of the funnels we're going to talk about later. Nobody is going to say, from the back row of the wedding, oh, I've seen him do this before. This is a shtick. It's like when we go to McDonald's or Tim Hortons here in Canada or whatever, you kind of, like, if you love it, you know what to expect at your favorite restaurant. If you have any sort of household budget and you look at your spending every month, you're going back to the same stores and same experiences again and again. You're spending money at the same places because you like it. You take some comfort in that. I have done the same thing with weddings, and that has helped me, not hindered me. It has helped me get booked because vendors know that they can refer me. Couples know that they can refer me. Wedding guests know that I'm pretty much going to do the same thing. The story is totally unique. The content is completely different every time. But the way that the ceremony looks is... I don't want to say predictable. That's a bit of a too pedantic word or pejorative word, but you know what you're going to get. And what would you rather have? Like a boring ceremony that everybody knows is going to be boring, or a super exciting ceremony? No one's going to get sick of it. In fact, quite the opposite. They're going to see that you're the officiant in the program and be so excited because they know what you can deliver, and they know that you deliver that level of quality product and performance every single time. So that's worked out huge for me. Like you say, getting a system down and a formula down. And that's what I teach in the course.
Yeah, I love it. And you do such a great job in the course, and your book, Wedding Zero to Ceremony Hero, really is packed. I could not believe how much value you packed into that book of just really detailing what people can do to basically build that framework. And the key is it's just framework where you can plug in the couple's story and still make it extremely unique, but also meet that organizational standard that people, the referral network can count on.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, well, the book literally teaches a spreadsheet, but the system is metaphorically a spreadsheet where you've got like blank boxes. Your ceremony doesn't sound cookie cutter. Everybody, the feedback that I get and that clients get is always wedding guests ask the couple, oh my gosh, how long have you known your friend Bill who officiated your wedding? And they think you guys are friends. You and the couple are friends because of the level of intimacy and depth of the story that you told. But really, that's just part of the system. People are shocked when the couple says, oh, we hired him. We just met him 6 months ago. We literally met one time for a planning session. We answered some questions on a survey, and he delivered the ceremony. The guests are shocked. And so that is part of having a formula where it's high touch with the couple. You know how to guide them. That's what book one is about. Sitting down with them and extracting from them the perfect ceremony that they want. But just getting the perfect ceremony, it's hugely important. But then the other box piece of that puzzle is learning to tell their story in a way that you know will succeed, where you can basically guarantee the success. And that's what I'm saying early on when I was casting about. I think a lot of officiants, because I learned from mentors, it was just, ask the couple some significant parts of their story, and then you'd get all kinds of answers, a trip to Bali, this other missive, this other anecdote. And so when you're telling the story, it's sort of like some of it's connecting with the wedding guests, some of it's not, because they just gave you kind of a dog's breakfast of memories. Whereas once I figured out the formula of telling the story is how they met, I started seeing this recurring theme, what their first impressions were of each other, how the first date went, because it's loaded with awkwardness and,
Right.
maybe disaster, and then how the proposal happened. Every couple that's standing in front of you in a wedding has a proposal in common. That kind of 3-story arc is a part of the formula that I teach in the course. And every couple has it in common. And once you narrow it down to that and you tell every couple's story the same way, again, that is part of what people can expect from you. And it delivers every single time.
Oh, love that. I want to shift gears a little bit because we want to move into how to help the wedding officiant get book solid now. But I still want to talk about what brings people to you. And for my story, obviously, I came to you because I see a perfect fit, connection, symbiotic relationship between notaries and wedding officiants. But beyond that, the reason that I've loved taking your course is I have been asked to officiate a wedding. And of course, I say yes. I say yes to a lot, but I say yes. And then I'm like, oh, crap, what have I done? I don't even know how to do this. And your core, I know that's a lot of how people come to you. So can we talk about that and then also merge into who actually decides to stay and build a career or a business out of this?
Okay, sure. You might have to remind me of the second part of the question, because as you've gathered by now, once I get going, I can forget part 2 of the question. But people who find me, and again, this is part of entrepreneuring. I know this is the Side Hustle podcast, and so it really is a sense of entrepreneurs are just solving a problem, right? That really is, I mean, that's business in general, but a successful entrepreneur notices a gap in the market. And one thing that I noticed several years ago before I built the course, it's kind of what inspired me to build the course when I was thinking about my only marketable skills and what I might do with them and who I could serve, is I was noticing on the internet, there's lots of like celebrancy institutes. There's lots of like schools for people who want to become professional wedding officiants, for example. And that's usually months of courses and a cohort and a tuition and all that stuff. What I saw, though, when I scoured the internet is the panicked one-off friend or relative, and this is a huge growing market all over the world, where open source weddings are kind of becoming open source to anybody who can officiate weddings. It all depends on your state and your province. Canada's a lot more locked down than the US. But still, even Canada's starting to open up to the couple is able to ask their, Uncle Bob to officiate their wedding. Well, Uncle Bob says yes, he's honored. And then he turns to the internet, kind of like you were saying, oh, crap, or stronger language. I have no freaking clue how to do this.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? Join a celebrancy institute and take 6 months of courses? No, they are more likely to just go on the internet and start downloading as many crappy Frankenstein copy paste cookie cutter ceremonies as they can, and then sort of make something that works and get up there and just like, cross their fingers and toes and hope they don't screw up. That is I saw nowhere was any website talking to that person. A lot of those people had to go to resources for brides and grooms. It's amazing out there that there's way more websites and books aimed at brides and grooms and their wedding ceremony than actual first-time officiants. So I just started creating a course, putting up YouTube videos, and talking to the panicked friend or family member, the first-timer, the person who is not necessarily interested in making this a career and taking 6 months of celebrancy courses or life cycle, funerals, naming ceremony. They just want to crush a ceremony for their friend or relative and move on. The irony is most of them experience the thrill of it. They can't believe it. Everyone at the reception is falling all over themselves saying that was the best ceremony I've ever seen. And then they come back to me on Monday and say, okay, I got asked 3 times at the reception to officiate a wedding for somebody else. And then it goes from there. It's a slippery slope. When you officiate a ceremony that well, like it or not, word's going to get out about you. And a lot of people end up doing this as an accidental Sidehustle. And so that's really how that ends up happening. See, I told you. What's the second part?
No, that's actually perfect. That blends perfectly. So who stays in this business and who really builds a business out of it?
Yeah, I think the people who stay in it are the people who, because once you do this, once you officiate, and then you, like I say, you have the referrals in the room after you officiate a slam dunk wedding ceremony the unboring way. You have the formula. If you get this course, the word of mouth is already out there. It really just becomes a choice of whether or not you want to do this. A lot of notaries, people in your audience. Canada doesn't have notaries that much, so you're the one who really put that whole culture and industry on the map for me. But it is a perfect offering in the suite of notaries. A lot of retired people, like Uncle Bob, for example, who I said, he's in his late 50s. He owned a business, but he's just sold it or retired, but he still loves getting out there. A lot of folks in their 50s, 60s, they start realizing that they want to do something meaningful like that. And so once you have the skill of a ceremony and then you realize that you have the tools right there built in. You thought it was a one-off, but now you have the capacity to do a side hustle. You just have to get 3 kind of referral streams going, firing, and then you can very comfortably have a side hustle, or depending on the climate you're in, a full-time officiating business.
Right. Well, that's perfect. And let's dive right in there. You mentioned the 3 specific funnels. This is exactly what we're going to talk about. 3 specific ways to generate referrals and help a wedding officiant get booked solid. What's the first one?
Okay, so I'll just give an overview of the 3, and then we can kind of drill down into them. So first of all, this is once you get these 3 referral funnels going, you are going to be pretty busy, and so you have to maybe focus more on one than another as you build it and get going as an entrepreneur. But once they are delivering for you pretty smoothly, that's when your inquiries are going to start coming in. So there are 3 of them. The first one I would say is you want couples to be able to find you, of course, so because you're serving couples. So how does a couple find you? You always have to think like your customer when you're an entrepreneur. So, this couple, they get engaged, they're so happy, they realize they need a venue and a photographer, and oh crap, we also need somebody to do that ceremony. What are they called again? And so they sit down and they start Googling wedding officiants in my area. That's typically where they start, is on Google. So you want to be where your customer is searching. And so it's very important, first of all, to be able to have couples find you. The second funnel that you want really firing for you is you want vendors to be referring you. Vendors are an even better source of customers coming in than just couples finding you. So you want vendors to be able to refer to you, and I have a whole strategy around that we're going to talk about. And then the third thing is you want wedding guests to remember you, because it's one thing for couples who are seeking you out. They have a wedding that they need to get done. Vendors can be talking you up all over town, but vendors typically are going to be, they eat, breathe, and sleep weddings. They have a wedding venue, a barn, the wedding florist, the wedding photographer. All they're doing is talking weddings 6 days a week. What about that huge stream of people in front of you, the 100 people every time you officiate a wedding? When you deliver a great ceremony, you're doing it in front of prospective future customers. Everybody knows somebody who's getting married or is going to get married. And so you want to really have that stream going as well. Number 3, we don't need to spend a ton of time talking about, because of course, it's a pretty short answer where when you we've already covered it in our conversation, when you totally deliver an incredible ceremony, the uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, friends, and plus ones in that wedding guest group are never going to forget you. They're going to leave saying, that was the best ceremony I've ever seen. I wouldn't want anyone else ever to officiate a wedding. And so they're just going to remember your name. I always say when you officiate a wedding like that, don't do the typical officiant marches out with the couple thing. That's tradition. It doesn't happen much more. I stand there at the front after the couple goes down the aisle, the wedding party goes down the aisle, the 2 front rows empty out. I stand there and I smile at everybody. And right then and there, so many times people come up the aisle straight to me and ask me if I have a card. And so that is super important to deliver a great unboring ceremony and have guests remember you and get cards right into their hands right then and there after a ceremony. So do you want to jump right into funnel number 1 and 2, the couples to find you, number 2, vendors to refer you, because I really want people to leave this podcast with actionable steps that they can put into practice right away.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect. Let's do it.
Okay. So first of all, the first one, to get couples to find you, really basic stuff. If you have any kind of entrepreneuring background, as we said before, you want to be where couples can find you. You want to be where your customers are. And so right off the bat, if you do nothing else, and do it today if you're starting today, go to Google My Business and follow the steps to get yourself listed on Google My Business. Figure out your name. And I know a lot of people in my community, they just start with their name, ceremonies by first name, last name. You don't have to do anything too elaborate. You can think of a name later, work on your branding, but right away, you want to get yourself listed on Google My Business because that is where couples do not know where to look for an officiant typically. This is not like going to the grocery store. This is not something they've done their whole life. So they'll just jump on Google and hope something comes up. You want to be there when they do that, which typically means the second thing for couples to find you is you need some sort of website or landing page, something really simple. It doesn't have to be overly elaborate. But even if it's just a one page, and if you have a notary business or any other kind of business, you can just add that on as part of your package, literally create a new tab on your website. But you're going to want some sort of presence that says, I officiate weddings in this area, your location. And we can get more into detail on websites if you'd like. I want you to steer this conversation. But the third and final thing for couples to find you is there are lots of directories and wedding platforms, Officiant or wedding professional directories and wedding vendor platforms. If you're not in the industry, this might be news to you, but things like Wedding Pro or The Knot or Wedding Wire. Wedding Pro is The Knot and Wedding Wire just combined. But these are websites where wedding vendors like myself, I'm listed on Wedding Wire. You can sign up for a free plan in a lot of them or a paid plan, and it pushes you higher to the top. But you just want to create a profile on these websites because, again, when a couple Googles, they're likely to land on a well-known wedding director or well-known website. So I know in the U.S., a website called the Officiant Directory just started where officiants are putting a profile up. And so it's coming up in Google. And so a couple will click that and then basically have a menu of officiants to choose from. So that's 3 ways that I would say when couples sit down and find and are looking for an officiant, if they haven't connected with a vendor yet, if they haven't been referred to anybody by a friend or family, you want to be where they are looking. Google My Business, some sort of website, and a directory or platform.
I love this. This is really great advice. And I'd like to spin off of it a little bit too, because, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. This is not a search engine optimization course by any means. But for those who might be listening that are intimidated by technology, I think it's important that they understand that Google My Business is a free suite of services offered for businesses by Google. It's free and it can be step by step. If you just go to Google My Business, just type that into Google, the Google platform will pop up for you. It is completely free. They have pages, they have other things. But what Mark's really talking about here too is search engine optimization or SEO. And it's using certain keywords that your couples are actually going to be searching for. And there are tools that can help you identify the words they are using to type into Google. And I encourage you to explore and learn about those, because that alone will help you rank in local SEO in the top 3 or in the Google Maps department, which is kind of where you want to be without having to pay for advertising.
Yeah, it's going to take you a long time, like in my experience, having done this for your website. Like I started out in Toronto, so it was pretty competitive to get in the top search results of the actual websites. But Google My Business is great, because if you use Google, you're familiar with the bar on the side that really lists local businesses.
Right.
And so you're more likely to show up there than trying to get the right SEO for your website and show up there quickly. That'll take months, whereas Google My Business can take just days or weeks once you activate it.
Yep, exactly. The other thing I wanted to touch on too is your directories. And again, this kind of ties into SEO one-on-one kind of stuff. But if you stay consistent in your directory listings, using keywords, strategic keywords that help drive the listings, a lot of these amazing directories in the wedding industry, they already have SEO in place. So they rank really high, but you can tag on to that by using some of those strategic keywords in your directory listing, as well as your LinkedIn listing. LinkedIn ranks really high on SEO. And if you're going to be a wedding officiant that takes this seriously, you can update your LinkedIn profile, and that will help get your SEO results up when people search for you. And the last thing I want to talk about, Mark, and I know you've got some great advice on this, is the actual website. I love that you said it's basic, just a basic landing page, but there's got to be a call to action on it, right?
Yes,
Can you talk a little bit about that call to action?
Yeah, one thing I've learned, going from knowing zero about this stuff to having a website that converts, is you want your every single web page that you create. So even if it's just a 3-page website, one of them shows your web services, one of them shows reviews, whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. And I always say, check out mine, unboringwedding.com, as a template. You want every single web page to have a single purpose. It's not a vanity project. It's not a place to just put up a whole bunch of stuff. Look at this, look at that, explore, like walking into a store. I'm just looking around. No, you want to drive people to a certain action, like you say. And so think, when you're building your website, what do you want this to do? What do you want a visitor to do when they're here? I would recommend, as a wedding officiant, if you're starting out, you want to drive every single visitor to fill out an inquiry form. And that means you don't want the inquiry form to be onerous. You don't want it to be 65 questions. There are some websites out there from officiants that just boggle my mind. I would sit there and I would just say, I don't have half an hour to do this. You want it super you want it super simple. Just name, email address, when are you getting married, where are you getting married, and click submit, basically. So you want to drive people to very easily fill out an inquiry form, which means you want buttons all over the place. Okay, not all over the place, but at the bottom of every page, an inquiry form, inquire. You see that on my website. I want people to be very clear when they hit that page of what their next step is and what I'm trying to get them to do. The purpose of your website as an officiant, you want one overarching purpose for your website, I would say. So the action you want visitors to take is to inquire, but your purpose is to get them to have a face-to-face meeting with you. I call it the chemistry check. I call it that right on the website. Let's meet for a chemistry check. The best advice I can give you as an officiant starting out is, just in general, face-to-face meetings, period, with couples and vendors. We'll talk about the vendor thing in the next funnel. But you would not believe how many couples meet with me at the coffee shop, because my website converts them to fill out an inquiry. Then I get back to them. I say, let's meet at the local coffee shop. And yes, make them come to you. You don't have to travel all over your city meeting couples. Choose your favorite coffee shop at the end of your street. In Toronto, it was Starbucks, literally 5 houses down from where I lived. And they would meet me there. And so many of them told me that they inquired with multiple officiants in Toronto. It was a very competitive and vibrant space for wedding officiants. But a lot of officiants would reply with a, thank you very much, I'm available. Here's a PDF of the ceremony that we will do. Let me know how you want to pay. And so what I would call that is just you're trying to be expedient. You're trying to rush the sale without any relationship. When you say, let's meet up. I want to hear about your vision for the day. I'll share with you my process. I want to meet you and just get to know you and see if we want to work together. You're miles ahead already once the couple has made the effort to come and sit down with you for coffee or tea or a beer or whatever you choose. You already have so much going for you in terms of meeting them and booking them. So make sure your website is very clear. You want them to meet you, which means don't put too much information on your website. That's really important. Some websites, again, there's tons and tons and tons of information. I don't do that. Be sparing. Answer some burning questions, maybe. Give people an impression of the kind of ceremony you do, especially if it's unboring. But don't answer too much. I always deflect if couples say, this, that, how do we this, how do we that? I say, oh, we'll cover all that when we meet and have our coffee. When you meet a couple and start developing a relationship, your likelihood of booking them is just through the roof, head and shoulders above sending them a PDF and saying, how do you want to pay?
Yeah, I love that you talk about that. Number one, I'm huge into relationships, and I love that you focus so much of on the relationship aspect of this. And I find that when people do have that relationship with you, there's lots of barriers that start to come down, price being a major one of them.
Absolutely.
But you just mentioned that you'll be head and shoulders above and getting yeses. Have you calculated like what your conversion rate is when you meet with a couple? I mean, are we talking, is it 80, 90% say yes versus 20% if it was just an email?
I literally, this is going to sound like bragging, but you asked. I literally think only 5 couples have said no to me in all the years since I started Unboring Wedding.
Wow.
And I remember who they are, and I'm still quite troubled by it. But because it's so few. Some couples mistakenly sat in front of me, made all the effort to get there and say, we just want a wham bam signing. And again, that is a quote debate that happens in the officiating community. If you want to just do quick signings, I know a lot of notaries do that. You can, and that's a good way to make quick money. But the risk of doing elopements, I used to do elopements, but then I started kicking myself because I'd be booked for a 4:00 quick $150 elopement where it's just the two of them and 2 friends. But then, of course, I'd get an inquiry for somebody who wanted my $800 package. And I would be like, oh, I accepted a $150 booking, and now I have to say no to this major package. So I just started saying, I just took it off the table, off my website. No more elopements, no more quick signings. Some officiants say I'll only do that, like quick signings or elopements Monday to Friday. So that's a good thing. You want to figure out the package that's right for you. And this really, to your question, branding plays a lot into it. So in my website, I started to realize that my branding was a way of screening clients, actually. So if you go to my website, unboringwedding.com, there's lots of pictures of me laughing with couples. I only offer the big packages. I describe a big ceremony. I make them click the package, full-blown ceremony. So right away, a visitor is going to get the impression that if they want a quick wham bam $150 thing, I'm not your guy. So, using your website and your branding to screen out people who are not going to go with you is important to not wasting your time and their time, right? So part of that formula of having a 99% conversion rate that I have is sitting down with them, but also making sure that the right customer is sitting in front of me at that coffee to begin with.
That's huge. Just knowing who your ideal customer. I love that your website screens these out. And what you're also describing is, I think, a beautiful part of any business, right? That you own, whether it's a side hustle or full-on business, you can make it what you want.
Yeah.
If you want to be the sign and go wedding officiant, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's just a different business model than what we're talking about here.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is the scalability of Sign and Go is never going to change in terms of price, typically, what you can command for that. Whereas once you do an unboring style, tell the couple's story, vendors, couples, guests are all referring you, price starts to become no object for people. So you can start charging 300, then you can move it up to 5. And, unboring, a lot of unboring wedding officiants, after they take my course and do a year of pounding pavements and blowing people's faces off with amazing ceremonies, they charge double what the rate is in their market. So that is one thing to consider, where the fast cash grab of doing signings and quick elopements, it feels good at first, but you're never going to move past that. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. Let's I think that's kind of perfect to talk about referrals, because probably the sign and go and the elopements probably don't get as much referral business. So we're going to talk about these blow your minds ceremonies and how to get referrals.
Yeah. So the second funnel. So again, to recap, the first funnel is you want couples to be able to find you on the internet when they're looking. The second funnel and most valuable funnel is vendors referring you, because as we all know, Google and SEO, it's great, but it takes a while to gain traction. It's a competitive thing of keywords and whatnot. When vendors are referring you, it is the most valuable source of business you will have. So what you definitely want to do is get out there, and I teach this as a formula. Again, I formalize everything. So having these conversations, pounding the pavement, and getting out there and meeting vendors referring you. Essentially, you want three things. You want to go out there with a threefold strategy when you want to meet wedding planners. By vendors, I mean planners, photographers, venue owners, even DJs, people who are serving the wedding industry and wedding couples. You want them to know that you exist. A fatal mistake that a lot of new officiants make, though, is Googling up these vendors, going out there with a stack of business cards, and just desperately saying, "Hi there, my name's so-and-so. Please refer me, please refer me, please refer me." And vendors have no interest in that at all. They can almost smell the blood in the water. and that will set you up for rejection. I know we're scared to meet vendors, especially titans in the industry in our area, because we are scared of rejection, right? And so one of the important things to make sure we don't get rejected is to set ourselves up for success when we get out there and pound the pavement and try to meet these vendors. So I have kind of a structure. First of all, you want the vendors to know you. I'm going to just run you through three things here that I think are important to keep in mind. You want these wedding vendors to know you, and that means having a face-to-face meeting with them. I don't mean like a 1 hour, let's become friends kind of meeting. That's way too intimidating. It can be 15, 20 minutes of saying, "Hey there, I would love to pick your brain about weddings. I know that you're a very accomplished person in the industry. Can we have coffee if they're a planner or something like that? Can I swing by your office? If they have a venue, can I come by your venue and take a look around?" And so you want them to know who you are, and you want to have a face-to-face meeting with them. Second thing you want is ultimately for them to trust you. A way to build that trust is to have a meeting with them and for them to get a sense of who you are, and that if they do refer you, their couples are going to be in good hands. No wedding vendor wants to refer somebody out who's going to let a client down or ultimately prove to be a disaster, right? So a way that they can trust you is, and this is kind of a longer game, as you officiate weddings, you want to chase every couple down for a review and put it on your website. That's that street cred that you start to develop, that online cred. And you want photos of you in action. Again, if you go to my website, I just paste everywhere I can photos of me and the couple as I officiate weddings having a great time. That's just the way I choose to brand myself. But it's that immediate proof and credibility that I do officiate weddings, and look, these clients are having a good time. So you want vendors to trust you. And that means the third thing you need before you go out to meet these vendors is you need some sort of materials to hand out. And again, don't make the fatal mistake, though, of throwing a whole bunch of things in your briefcase, showing up in front of this wedding vendor and handing them a stack of material and saying, please refer me. I will tell you when and how to hand those out. I recommend, though, handing out, when you do prepare these materials, creating a rack card. A rack card is way more efficient than a business card. This is another mistake we make, is we just have business cards made up, because who doesn't love owning a business card? It makes you feel so legit and cool. But business cards are great when you're in person, standing there. Hey, Bill, nice to meet you at this Mingler thing. Here's my card. Bill, can I have your card? There's no real information. The business card doesn't sell. Business cards are designed to be handed out by you when you're standing in front of a person. What you want to create is a rack card. Think about when you go on vacation and you don't know what to do. If you go on a resort somewhere in Mexico, there's a zip line, there's a jungle safari. There's not business cards in the hotel lobby, there's rack cards. You pick them up, you turn it over, you get a sense right away from a well-designed rack card what the adventure is, what the company does, even how much it is, the area they serve, phone number, easy way to contact them. So you want to create rack cards that represent your services, whether it is a quick signing, maybe you do some elopements, maybe you do a huge ceremony, put them all on there, give people a real sense of what it is you do. And then you are going to want to, with those things in mind and those materials ready, you're going to want to start reaching out. So Google up in your area who are some big vendors and venues. And again, this is where you can look on the directories and you can Google, because now you're looking for vendors the same way a couple would. So you'll learn a lot just by doing that. But what I would say is the first thing you do is, when you get an appointment with a planner, say, and you just say, I'd really love to reach out to you and pick your brain. And you have to make sure you're not, tell yourself as you drive there, I am not doing this to, get this person to refer me. It'll happen naturally if you develop a rapport with this person. And so really, I just have quick 5 quick starter questions that you can keep in mind when you meet a wedding vendor, because I know some of them are quite intimidating. The first thing I would do when I grabbed my coffee, and I did this in New Brunswick, I had to move from Toronto where I knew everybody. I moved to New Brunswick to officiate destination weddings by the sea, bought a house, all that. And I had to start over, which means I had to do exactly what I'm telling you here. Cold call all these vendors in the area, local barns, the big local Marriott resort on the sea, and meet the wedding coordinator there. And I just said, can I stop by? Can I just pick your brain for 15 or 20 minutes about weddings in the area? And they are so happy to do that for the most part. So here's 5 questions you can ask. This to me will get you through like a 20-minute to half an hour conversation with a wedding vendor. First thing, you just ask them, how did you start out? The same way you did, Bill, with me to get this podcast going, and you opened me right up, because who doesn't love talking about themselves? Ask the vendor, how did you start out? Why do you do what you do? Tell me your origin story. How did you get into weddings? How did you get where you are? They'll tell you all about themselves. And then the second thing you can ask is something like, can you tell me about the kinds of weddings you work on in the area? What do weddings look like? Are they big? Are they small? What kind of clients do we get? That kind of thing. The third thing you might want to ask is something like, what makes an officiant great to work with? Vendors love sharing about other vendors. And so when you say, what makes an officiant great to work with, I think very quickly you'll start to hear more horror stories than anything, and that'll give you a lot of learning as well. But because people will likely say, oh my gosh, some officiants come here and they're a hot, sweaty mess, they're late, they're disorganized, they're this, they're that. You get to hear what they hate. Remember, ask what they like about working with certain officiants, and you'll get both sides of the story. And that'll give you an idea, A, of what kind of officiant you want to be, but B, the fact that you asked this wedding vendor that question will be huge in their minds, that you want to be the best officiate you want to be, just by virtue of the fact that you're asking that question. The fourth thing I would say you could ask is, are you a part of any wedding groups that I should know about? Wedding vendors are likely already parts of communities, chamber of commerce things, wedding shows that are coming up, local wedding support groups. So ask them, are you a part of any group that I could join locally to get into the wedding community? And you'll likely get 1, 2, 3 recommendations from every vendor you meet. And then before you know it, you're networked into all these groups.
Yeah, great question.
And the final thing I'll just say is, do you have any other advice for me as a wedding officiant? You want to come in with a posture of learning. I hope I'm really giving that impression here. You're not coming in with a posture of weakness. Again, please refer me. I'm starting out and I don't have any clients and I'm desperate. Don't do that. Come in saying, I want to refer you. That's the posture you're taking. I want to learn from you and I want to refer couples to you because you're clearly a big deal. You're an amazing planner. You're a really well-known DJ. Your venue is one of the hottest wedding venues in the area. And so please let me learn from you and let me refer you to couples. When you finish that kind of conversation with a wedding vendor, you are going to have such positive regard from them. That's where you say, I'd like to refer you. Do you have a card? Do you have a rack card that I can give my clients? And then now it's an exchange. They're going to give you a card. Then you can say, if ever you need a wedding officiant, here, oh, look, I have some rack cards here, but you can distribute those if you'd like. Again, you didn't come in hot saying, please, please, please give this stuff to couples. You just learned from them, picked your brain. You made a great impression. And as we said at the top of this conversation, the relational piece, it is, I would say, is paramount in most businesses, but especially the wedding industry.
Yeah, that was huge, Mark. Excellent advice. And there's a couple of takeaways too on top of those top 5 amazing conversation tips is the desperation piece, that desperation that tracks rejection. And I love that you talked about that because and you said it as they're sharks that can smell that in the water. You can feel when somebody's there for an inauthentic purpose. So the main point, and I love, we were recently on Clubhouse and we got a chance to talk about this too, but the overall bow wrapped around these 5 questions is, how can I support you?
Yes.
When you approach the conversation that way, it tears down walls that might otherwise be there.
Absolutely.
Excellent advice.
And so really that's probably as deep as we want to get into it in terms of the 3 funnels. So to recap again, you got couples finding you when they're looking for you. But then you have those vendors because you've met 6, 8, 10. And when I teach this as a course, I do it as a challenge. I say, your challenge this week is to Google up and set up some coffees or walkthroughs. If it's a venue, you just say, can I come to your barn, take a look around? Can I come to the hotel, take a look around? You show up there, you've had a few meetings, and you're just establishing those relationships. Once you get that funnel starting and referring you, that will start delivering and converting. And then the third thing, like I said, wedding guests remembering you. You just have to put on a great wedding ceremony, which sounds daunting and sounds difficult, but I have a course that literally guarantees that you can do that. And once you get all those 3 funnels firing on all cylinders, before you know it, you will have more business than you can handle. And that's when you have a really great problem of deciding, do I want to become a wedding officiant full time? Another great side benefit of this is you have to start referring out when you're booked. It's so fun to say to a couple, oh, I'm booked on this date, but I know another great officiant. You start networking with officiants because they're vendors too. Vendors who you get to know at all these this networking you've been doing. You start referring out and you start building positive regard with other officiants, and then they'll start referring to you because when you're booked, you refer them. They will reciprocate. And so you see how it just keeps building like a snowball. And it really just took me a couple of years of building this formula, officiating great ceremonies like that, and following the steps that I just described here today, where I was in a position where I was just booked from May to the end of October. That's Canadian wedding season. And I just couldn't handle any more business. And
what
so
a great
it really
problem.
works. And that's what I just want to share with you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you did. And I love that we've talked about the Unboring Wedding Academy, for our listeners, you can visit the VIP room at sidehustlelounge.com. Mark has extremely generously discounted his access to the Unboring Wedding Academy by 50%. And there's a link inside the VIP room so you can get access to that. But Mark, I got one more question before we wrap up here, because I know there's still people maybe listening, maybe rolling their eyes thinking they can wing it and they don't need this level of training or commitment to step number 3, which is delivering an incredible ceremony that is remembered, a memorable ceremony. Can you talk to the people who are maybe on the fence and maybe trying to decide if just winging it is okay, or should they go pro?
Well, I think just based on the experience, I mean, it's anecdotal evidence, but it's also really objective in the sense of black and white every Monday. This is the way that I built my business. When I was winging it, I wasn't sure that I was nailing it every single time. The way that you can guarantee that you are going to do great, whether it's a one-off for a friend or family member, or you want to do this regularly for vendors and couples who will know what you're going to deliver. The way that you're going to guarantee that is to formularize it. As we talked about, every successful business, I think, does that. You don't buy a bottle of Coca-Cola, crack the lid open, and hope it tastes like the last time you bought Coca-Cola, right? So I really think that's just a part of successful business, for one thing. But I'm trying to offer, and I do offer, the recipe that can guarantee that you will deliver a great ceremony. That is a huge part of this, because the confidence that you get from knowing you have worked through a system that works it's electric, and it is contagious. That might not be a great word to use during a pandemic, but it is contagious on the wedding day when you show up and you're well put together. My course teaches how to run a rehearsal super well, and you know every single detail. My course teaches how to show up on the wedding day when everyone else is stressed out and running around and disorganized. You know, you have a checklist. You know exactly what you got to do. You just have to read the script. You're not, I get a little bit nervous before every wedding, the jitters that you get, but I know I've just got to stand up there. I've done all the work. I'm going to read a script that I have agonized and meticulously planned every single word, and I know it's going to deliver. So, it's the confidence piece, it's the guarantee piece for yourself and the peace of mind for your couple. And that's where, whether it's a one-off or whether you want to turn this into a full-time business, it is crucial to, I would say, not winging it, because you're not going to feel great 5 minutes before the ceremony if you're just thinking, I'm going to get up there and see what happens. The same way you don't want to do that with any product you purchase yourself. You don't want to purchase it and see, I'll see what happens when it gets to my door, or when they put that plate in front of me at the restaurant. You want to know what you're getting, and you want to know other people would vouch for it. And so the best way to do that is to work the steps, have a plan, and follow a formula that works.
I love that. And I think too, there's got to be a certain reverence for the role that you play in this couple's day, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And it's great when they feel confident in you. That's the funny thing about officiating a wedding, is it's not like if you've been asked to speak at a conference or something, you get up on stage and you bomb. That can happen, and it's happened to me. But when you get up and officiate a wedding, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to ruin their day. It's such a weight of responsibility that they have invested so much trust in you. You're trying to not mess up for them. It's unlike any other public speaking situation. Conversely, when you get up there and make it all about them, their story, what they love about each other, you're just shining the spotlight on them the whole time you're talking. It's a dynamic unlike anything else, which is why I absolutely love it. To come full circle in our conversation, I could never have picked this for a job, but absolutely there is nothing like it. And I'm so glad that it picked me, or I picked it, or something happened in the universe. And here we are, because I love what I do, and I love helping others find their way doing it too.
Well, it just rings true in your voice, your passion, your enthusiasm for what you do. And I'm so grateful that you did find your calling for this period and that you've taken the time to create something that shines a light for those who are on the path behind you. So Mark Allan Groleau, thank you so much. For those listening, Mark Allan Groleau is the best-selling author of Wedding Zero to Ceremony Hero, plus 2 additional books in that unboring wedding system on their way. He's also the founder and instructor at Unboring Wedding Academy. And if you go to the VIP room at www.sidehustlelounge.com, you can get access to his course and those books. Mark, thank you so much for being here, joining us in the Side Hustle Lounge.
Thanks a lot, Bill. This has been a blast.